I saw the way the waiter looked at us tonight. He placed the wine list in Julian's hand, but he put the check right next to my diamond bracelet. He didn't say it, but I heard it. I hear it every time we walk into a room. I see it in the eyes of the women my age who whisper behind their menus. I see it in the smirk of the men who used to court me. They're thinking, look at Veronica. They call me a cougar. They call him a gold digger. They call me his sugar mama. The truth is, he is the only one brave enough to love me for who I actually am, not for what I can buy.
It happened again tonight. The moment I have come to dread, and yet the moment I have come to expect. We were dining at Le Coucou. It's a beautiful place. Velvet banquettes, towering candles, the kind of hushed atmosphere where money doesn't shout. It whispers. Julian was telling me about a design flaw in the Guggenheim, his hands moving animatedly, his eyes bright with that specific, intense passion that only the young seem to possess. I was listening, truly listening, captivated not just by his words, but by the way the candlelight caught the sharp line of his jaw. Then, the check came. The waiter, a man roughly my age, didn't even glance at Julian. He didn't hover between us. He slid the black leather folder directly across the linen tablecloth, bypassing Julian's water glass, and placed it firmly next to my right hand, next to my diamond tennis bracelet. It was a small gesture, a microaggression, they call it, but it screamed a narrative that everyone in that restaurant was already writing in their heads. I saw the couple at the table next to us. The woman, perhaps 35, nudged her husband. I saw her lips move. I didn't need to hear the sound to know the words. Sugar mama. Look at him. He hit the jackpot. Look at her, buying a little more time. They did the math. They looked at my vintage Chanel jacket, my blown-out silver blonde hair, the way I hold myself with the rigid posture of a woman who has run a corporation for 15 years. Then they looked at Julian, 30 years old, wearing a suit that fit him well but was clearly off the rack, a little scruff on his chin, a hunger in his eyes. To them, the equation is simple. I am the buyer. He is the goods. I am trading my 401k for his collagen. He is trading his freedom for my Amex Black Card. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to stand up, shatter the crystal wine glass against the wall, and scream that they don't know anything. I wanted to tell them that I was the one who was terrified. I wanted to tell them that he was the one saving me. But I didn't. I just reached for the check. Because that's what a lady does. She absorbs the judgment. She swallows the insult like a bad oyster. But tonight, as we stand on the precipice of a new year, as the snow begins to coat the streets of Manhattan in a blanket of silence, I am done with the silence. My name is Veronica. I am 55 years old. And this is the story of how I stopped apologizing for being loved. To understand us, you have to understand the autumn that preceded the winter. October in New York is usually romantic. The leaves in Central Park turn the color of burnt sugar and old pennies. The air gets crisp, but for me, October was just another month of suffocation. I am the CEO of a boutique marketing firm. I built it from the ground up after my divorce 10 years ago. My ex-husband, Richard, left me for a yoga instructor named Kaya, who spelled her name with a silent Q. It was a cliché so painful, I couldn't even laugh at it. Richard took his youth back. I took the work. I buried myself in the firm. I became the Iron Lady of Madison Avenue. I stopped dating because the men my age wanted nurses, not partners. And the men older than me wanted me to be 25. I had accepted my fate. I would be the elegant aunt, the successful boss, the woman who travels to Paris alone and drinks expensive wine in hotel bars, reading books about other people's love lives. Then came the rain. It was a Tuesday. I had just fired a client, a misogynistic tech bro who called me sweetheart in a board meeting. I stormed out of the building, adrenaline pumping, shaking with rage. I needed air. I stepped onto the curb just as the sky opened up, a torrential, freezing downpour. I struggled with my umbrella, an expensive Italian thing that looked beautiful, but functioned terribly. A gust of wind caught it, and it snapped, inverted, useless. I stood there, water running down my neck, ruining a $1,200 silk blouse, mascara stinging my eyes. I felt pathetic. I felt old. I let out a scream of frustration, a guttural, ungraceful sound that I thought was lost in the traffic noise. "That was a solid 7 out of 10, a voice said. "But if you project from the diaphragm, you could hit a 9. I spun around. There was a man standing under the awning of a coffee shop. He was holding a large, sturdy black umbrella. He wasn't dressed for the weather. He wore a t-shirt covered by a flannel and jeans that had paint on them. He was holding a sketchbook. He stepped out from the dry safety of the awning and walked right into the rain, extending his umbrella over my head. "I'm Julian," he said. He didn't look at my chest. He didn't look at my sodden blouse. He looked right into my eyes, which were currently raccoon-circled with running makeup. "I'm wet," I said stupidly. "I noticed," he smiled. It was a crooked smile, one tooth slightly overlapping the other. It was imperfect and devastatingly charming. "Let me buy you a coffee, unless you plan on standing here and drowning to prove a point." I should have said no. I have a driver. I have an assistant. I don't drink coffee with strangers in flannel shirts. But I was cold, and for the first time in years, a man was looking at me without wanting something from me. "Black," I said. 2 sugars. We sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours. I missed a conference call. I missed a dinner reservation. We didn't talk about my company. We talked about architecture. He told me he was an architect struggling to get his own designs approved in a firm that favored glass boxes over human connection. He talked about humane spaces. He talked about how buildings should make people feel safe. I found myself watching his hands. They were rough, calloused from sketching and model building, not the soft, manicured hands of the men I knew. At one point, he stopped talking and just looked at me. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. I reached for my compact to fix my face. "Don't," he said. He reached out and gently lowered my hand. "You have an incredible face. It has history. It has structure." "I have wrinkles," I corrected him, harshness creeping into my voice. "I have bags under my eyes." "You have lines where you smile," he said softly, "and lines where you worry. It's a map. I like maps." I felt a blush rise up my neck, hot and fierce. I hadn't blushed since 1998. When we finally parted ways, he asked for my number. I hesitated. "I'm 55, Julian," I said, dropping the bomb. I waited for the flinch, the backpedal. He just typed into his phone. "And I'm 30. Does that mean I can't call you?" "It means you shouldn't," I whispered. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. And he did. The text came at 8 a.m. "Good morning. I passed a gargoyle on 5th Avenue that looks exactly like your client. Thought you should know." Attached was a picture of a stone face grimacing. I laughed out loud in my empty penthouse. My housekeeper, Maria, looked at me with alarm. I texted back. Then he texted. For 2 weeks, we existed in a digital bubble. It was safe there. In text, I didn't have a neck that needed firming cream. In text, he didn't have student loans. We were just 2 minds. But then, he asked for dinner. "Real dinner," he said. "Not coffee. I want to take you out." Panic set in. I sat in front of my vanity mirror for 2 hours. The lighting in my bathroom is unforgiving. I pulled the skin back from my jawline. If I just held it there. I looked 40. If I let go, 55. "What are you doing, Veronica?" I asked my reflection. "He's a child. This is embarrassing. You are going to be the punchline of a joke." I almost canceled. I had the text written out. "I'm sorry. I'm busy." But then I remembered the silence of my apartment, the crushing, velvet-lined silence that greeted me every night. I deleted the text. I put on my armor, a black dress, long sleeves, high neck, modest, elegant, hiding everything. He took me to a small Italian place in the village, not expensive, but authentic. When I walked in, he stood up. He didn't just stand up. He practically leapt. "Wow," he breathed. "I feel overdressed," I said, looking around at the students in jeans. "You look like the queen of the night," he said. "Everyone else looks like they're in their pajamas." The date was electric. We argued about politics. We agreed on art. We shared a bottle of cheap Chianti that tasted like vinegar in heaven. But the moment of truth came when the bill arrived. He reached for it. "Julian," I said, instinctively reaching for my purse. "Please, I chose the wine. Let me." "No," he said firmly. His hand covered the check. "I asked you out. I pay." "But—" I looked at his worn cuffs. I knew this meal cost a quarter of his weekly paycheck. "Veronica," he said, his voice dropping an octave, "I am a man. I am taking a woman I desire out to dinner. Please do not insult me by assuming I can't afford a plate of pasta." I froze. A woman I desire. He didn't see a meal ticket. He saw a woman. We walked out into the cold October air. He walked me to my car. My driver was waiting. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. I looked at the driver, who was pretending to look at his phone. I looked at the passersby. "People will stare," I whispered. "Let them," he said. And he kissed me. It wasn't a tentative, polite kiss. It was a hungry, possessive, claiming kiss. He tasted like wine and rain. And in that moment, the 25-year age gap didn't vanish. It ignited. November brought the cold, and it brought the reality check. We had been dating for 6 weeks. We spent weekends at his studio in Brooklyn, sleeping on a mattress on the floor because he didn't have a bed frame yet. I, the woman who slept on 1,000 thread-count Egyptian cotton, found myself waking up with a stiff back and a full heart. But we existed in a bubble. Brooklyn was safe. My penthouse was safe. The real world was waiting. "I want you to come to my parents' house for Thanksgiving," Julian said one morning while making me eggs on a hot plate. I choked on my coffee. "Your parents?" I asked. "Julian, how old is your mother?" He hesitated. 52. I put the mug down. "I am 3 years older than your mother." "So," he said, flipping an egg, "you're smarter than her too." "It's not funny, Julian. They will think I'm perverted. They will think I'm buying you." "They will love you," he lied. He was wrong. We drove to Connecticut in my Jaguar. I drove. That was the first strike. When we pulled into the driveway of the modest suburban colonial, I saw the curtains twitch. We walked to the door. I was wearing a cashmere sweater set, pearls, and trousers. I tried to look non-threatening. I tried to look maternal? No, that was worse. The door opened. Julian's mother, Brenda, stood there. She was wearing an apron with a turkey on it. She looked tired. She looked her age, and there I stood. Botoxed, laser-treated, Pilates-toned, dripping in wealth. The contrast was violent. "Mom," Julian said, beaming, "this is Veronica." Brenda looked at me. Her eyes went from my boots to my face. There was no warmth. There was only shock, followed by a deep, defensive suspicion. "Hello, Mrs. Davis," I said, extending a hand. "Thank you for having me." "Veronica," she said. Her handshake was limp. I didn't realize you were—" "So distinguished," Julian interrupted, squeezing my waist. "So contemporary," Brenda finished, her lips thinning. Dinner was a bloodbath wrapped in polite conversation. The table was crowded, uncles, aunts, cousins. The questions started immediately. "So, Veronica," Julian's Uncle Bob asked, chewing with his mouth open, "what do you do?" "I own a marketing firm in the city," I said. "Oh, a boss lady," Bob chuckled. "Must be nice. Julian here says you drive a Jag. That your car or the company's?" "It's mine," I said quietly. "Must be nice," he repeated. "So, is Julian working for you? Is that how this works?" The table went silent. The clinking of silverware stopped. "Excuse me?" I said, my blood turning to ice. "I'm just asking," Bob shrugged. "Julian's a starving artist type. You're established, just trying to figure out the dynamic." I looked at Julian. This was the test. Most men would laugh it off. Most men would distance themselves to save their ego. Julian put his fork down. The sound was loud against the china. "The dynamic," Julian said, his voice calm but terrifyingly steady, "is that Veronica is the most intelligent, successful, and interesting person I have ever met. And I had to beg her to date me. I am the lucky one at this table, Uncle Bob, not her. She doesn't need me for anything, but I need her because she makes me better. He looked around the table, challenging anyone to speak. And, for the record, Julian added, taking a sip of his water, she drives the Jaguar better than any of you could drive a Toyota. Brenda looked down at her plate. Uncle Bob turned red. Under the table, Julian found my hand. His grip was so tight it almost hurt. I squeezed back. That was the moment I fell in love with him. Not lust, love. He didn't just defend me, he claimed me. He put his own pride on the line to protect mine. But as we drove home that night, in the quiet dark of the highway, I saw him rubbing his temples. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be," I said. "They made it seem like—" He trailed off. "Like I'm a sugar mama," I finished. "I hate that word," he spat. "It's just a word, Julian." "No," he said, looking out the window. "It's a weapon. They use it to strip me of my dignity and strip you of your desirability. They can't believe I want you, so they invent a price tag." I reached over and touched his leg. "We know the truth," I said. But did we? Because as December approached and the holiday season truly began, the price tag would become a very real, very tangible thing, and the world was about to test us in ways that Uncle Bob couldn't even imagine. If Thanksgiving was a trial by fire, December was a trial by ice. My world, the Upper East Side, the charity galas, the boardrooms, is a small, vicious ecosystem. It thrives on gossip, and nothing feeds the ecosystem quite like a scandal. I received the invitation to the annual Winter Solstice Gala at the Met. It is the event of the season. Tickets cost $5,000 a plate. It is a room full of people who have everything, yet constantly look over their shoulders to see who has more. "I'm not going," I told Julian one evening. We were in my living room. He was sketching on the floor. I was pacing with a glass of Chardonnay. "Why?" he asked, not looking up. "Because, Julian, you saw how your uncle looked at me. Imagine a room full of people who are richer, meaner, and have known me for 20 years. They will eat you alive. They will treat you like a pet." He put his pencil down. He stood up and walked over to me, taking the wine glass from my hand and setting it on the table. "Veronica," he said, "do you think I'm weak?" "No," I stammered. "I think you're gentle." "I am gentle with you," he said. "But I can't handle a room full of men in tuxedos. Take me, let them stare. If we hide, we prove them right." So, we went. I wore emerald green, silk, backless, unforgiving. I wanted to look like a fortress. Julian wore a tuxedo I knew he had rented. The sleeves were a fraction too short, but he wore it with the confidence of a king. We walked into the great hall of the museum. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Heads turned. I felt the ripple effect. The whispers started at the door and moved like a wave through the room. "Is that Veronica? Who is the boy? Her trainer? Her assistant? No, look at his hand on her waist. It's her lover." We navigated the shark tank. I introduced Julian. "This is Julian. He's an architect." Most people gave him a condescending smile. "An architect? How quaint. Do you design tree houses?" Julian just smiled back. "Actually, I specialize in sustainable urban restoration. I fix the things the previous generation broke." He was sharp. He was witty. He was holding his own. And then I saw him, Richard, my ex-husband. He was standing by the champagne tower, looking tan from a trip to St. Bart's, and hanging on his arm was Kaya. She was 24. She was wearing a dress that was barely legal. She looked bored. Richard saw us. His eyes widened. He whispered something to Kaya, and they walked over. The crowd parted. This was the main event, the ex-wife versus the ex-husband. "Veronica," Richard boomed, his voice echoing slightly. "You look well-kept." "Richard," I nodded. "You look tan." He turned his gaze to Julian. He looked him up and down, slowly, insolently. "And who is this?" Richard asked, loud enough for the circle around us to hear. "Your nephew? Or perhaps a charity case you picked up for the holidays?" The circle giggled. Kaya checked her phone. I felt the heat rise in my chest. I opened my mouth to eviscerate him. I was ready to scream. But Julian squeezed my hand. A signal. "Let me." Julian stepped forward. He didn't look angry. He looked amused. "Hello, Richard," Julian said. "I've heard a lot about you, mostly about your business mergers. You have a fascinating strategy of acquiring assets you don't know how to maintain and then discarding them when their value fluctuates." Richard blinked. The smile faltered. "I'm Julian," he continued, extending a hand. "I'm not her nephew. I'm the man who is reminding her how it feels to be listened to, something I understand you struggled with." The circle went deadly silent. Richard stared at the hand. He didn't shake it. He just huffed, turned purple, and grabbed Kaya's arm. "Come on," he muttered. They walked away. I looked at Julian. He was calm. He picked up 2 glasses of champagne from a passing tray and handed one to me. "2 assets," he whispered, clinking his glass against mine. "You are dangerous," I breathed, looking at him with awe. "I told you," he grinned. "I'm only gentle with you." That night, we danced. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't care about the whispers. I let him spin me, I let him dip me. And when I looked at the women my age, standing in the corners with their wealthy and different husbands, I didn't see judgment in their eyes anymore. I saw envy. We survived the gala, but I was exhausted. The performance of being Veronica the CEO takes a toll. The armor is heavy. 2 days before New Year's Eve, Julian drove me north. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere where there are no mirrors," he said. We arrived at a small A-frame cabin in the Catskills. It was rustic, simple. A wood stove, a loft bed, and a wall of windows looking out into the dense, snowy forest. "I rented it for 3 days," he said. "No Wi-Fi, no emails, just us." The first night was terrifying, not because of the woods, but because of the intimacy. In the city, I could hide. I could retreat to my bathroom for an hour of maintenance. I could control the lighting. Here, there was nowhere to hide. The next morning, the sun streamed in through the glass wall. It was blindingly bright. I woke up before him. I panicked. I didn't have my makeup bag. I hadn't done my hair. I sat up, pulling the duvet up to my chin, trying to shield my face from the morning light. Julian stirred. He opened his eyes. He looked at me. "Good morning," he rasped. "Don't look at me," I said, turning away. "The light, it's too harsh." "Veronica," he said. "I look 100 years old in this light, Julian. I have no makeup on. My skin is dry. Just give me 10 minutes. He sat up. He grabbed my shoulders and turned me to face him. "Stop it," he said firmly. "You don't understand," I cried. "You're 30. You wake up looking like a god. I wake up looking like a history book." He moved his hand to my cheek. He traced the line from my nose to my mouth with his thumb. "I love this line," he said. "It shows how much you've laughed." He traced the crow's feet by my eyes. "I love these. They show you've squinted at the sun. They show you've lived." He leaned in, his nose touching mine. "You are so obsessed with the package, Veronica. You think I'm here for the wrapping paper. I'm not. I'm here for the gift inside. You are the smartest, funniest, deepest woman I know. Who cares if the paper has a few crinkles? It just proves the gift is real." I broke down. I sobbed into his bare chest. I cried for the years I spent hating myself. I cried for the pressure to be perfect. And he just held me. He didn't fix it. He just held me. That afternoon, we walked in the snow. I didn't wear makeup. I wore a beanie and his oversized coat. We chopped wood. We drank hot chocolate. For the first time in my adult life, I forgot to suck in my stomach. I forgot to check my reflection. I was just a human being. And I realized something profound. The sugar mama dynamic implies I am paying for his company. But out here, in the woods, with no money being spent, no fancy dinners, no expensive gifts, he was still here. He was still looking at me like I was the only woman on earth. He wasn't in love with my wallet. He was in love with my soul. We returned to the city on December 31st. The energy of New York on New Year's Eve is impossible to describe. It is a collective vibration, millions of people hoping for something better. We were invited to a rooftop party in Midtown. We stood by the railing, the wind whipping my hair. Below us, the sea of people was pulsing. Julian was quiet. He seemed nervous. He kept checking his pocket. My old insecurities flared up. Is he going to ask for something? Is this the moment the other shoe drops? Is he going to ask for a loan for his firm? Veronica, he said. The music was loud, so he had to lean in close. Yes, I shouted back. I need to give you something, before the ball drops, before the year changes. He pulled out an envelope. My heart sank. A letter? A breakup letter? Open it, he said. I opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document. I squinted in the dim light. It was a lease agreement for an art studio in Dumbo, a beautiful, expensive space he had been dreaming about for months. But it wasn't a request for me to sign as a guarantor. It was a receipt. Paid in full, 12 months. I looked up at him, confused. I don't understand, I said. Did you want me to reimburse you? He laughed. No, Veronica. Look at the name on the payment. I looked closer. Payer, Julian Miller. I sold my car, he shouted over the noise of the crowd. And I sold 3 of my designs to the city council last week. I didn't tell you because I wanted it to be a surprise. You sold your car? I don't need a car, he said. I need a future, and I need you to know that I can pay my own way. I need you to know that I am not here for your money. I am here to build a life with you. I stared at the paper. This man, who everyone called a gold digger, had just liquidated his only asset to prove his independence, to prove his worth to me. He wasn't asking for a handout. He was offering a partnership. Why? I asked, tears freezing on my cheeks. Because, he said, stepping closer, blocking out the rest of the world. I want to propose to you one day, maybe not today, maybe not next month, but one day. And when I do, I want to buy the ring with my own money. And I want you to know that when I say I love you, it has no price tag. The crowd began to scream. 10, 9. He took the paper from my hand and shoved it in his pocket. He took my face in his hands. You are not my sugar mama, he said fiercely. You are my muse. You are my equal. You are my love. 6, 5. I looked at him. I saw the 30-year-old face, yes, but I saw an old soul, a man who was stronger than any CEO I had ever dated. I realized then that age is just a number of times you have orbited the sun. It says nothing about your heart. 3, 2. I love you, Julian, I screamed. I love you, Veronica, he yelled back. 1. The sky exploded. Fireworks shattered the darkness. Gold, red, silver. He kissed me. And in that kiss, I felt the years melt away. I wasn't 55, he wasn't 30. We were just 2 flames, burning brighter than the fireworks above us. It is January 1st. The world is quiet. The party is over. The champagne is flat. But as I sit here, watching Julian sleep in my bed, looking at the receipt for his studio on the nightstand, I know that my life has just begun. People will still stare. The waiter will still put the check near my hand. The whispers will still happen, but they don't matter anymore. Because they are looking at a transaction. We are looking at a transformation. To the women listening to this, to the women who think their time has passed, to the women who think they are too old for romance or too successful to be loved for who they are. Don't believe the lie. Don't settle for a man who wants you to be smaller. Wait for the man who climbs the mountain to find you. Wait for the man who stands in the rain with an umbrella. Wait for the man who sees the lines on your face and calls them a map home. They said he was my sugar mama. They were wrong. He is my heart. And hearts don't have an age. Happy New Year. If this story gave you hope, please subscribe our channel. Like this video to support love in all its forms. Tell me in the comments, do you believe love has an age limit?